Alright, I do watch a lot of combat sports, kind of. I mean, I watch UFC, I watch boxing, and I wouldn't say I'm a casual, but actually, you know what, now that I think about it, I am somewhat of a casual fan. Pretty much recently was the UFC White House event, and whenever I watch these UFC events, I have a lot of things in my head that I just never get out, and now that I have a YouTube channel, I can just put it out there. Granted, no one's gonna watch it, no one's gonna care, but we do what we do. Basically, to sum it up, Justin Gaethje managed to beat Ilia Topuria. I actually have no idea how he managed to do that. To be 100% transparent with you, I thought Ilia Topuria would have had it in the bag. But I think it goes to show that you should just never doubt or get too cocky. But at the same time, I think you have to realize it is a fight, so literally anything can happen. You can break your toe, you can roll your ankle, you can get punched in the face 3 times, you know what I mean? Like, anything can happen in a fight, so you really have to be prepared for every outcome. Now, while Gaethje managed to absolutely smash his face in, and I'm not going to put a picture of it because, I mean, we already know what it looks like, and I don't really want to look it up because it is quite horrific. One thing that I focus on after these fights is particularly what's next for every single fighter, because I find a lot of enjoyment in trying to figure out what's next for them. I mean, where do they go from here? What do they do? I'm not too particularly fussed about what happened in the actual fight. I mean, we watched the fight. We know what happened. I'll also add to that once it got to the second round, I do think Ilia Topuria sort of just lost himself. I think his spirit was broken. I think he didn't feel the same, primarily because his whole fight camp, he spent all of his time just boasting about how he's going to beat Justin Gaethje, and he did all his promotions, he did interviews, he did a bunch of stuff, and the premise, everyone going into this thought, you know, he's gonna knock out Justin Gaethje. Obviously, you can't count out Justin Gaethje, you can't count out anyone when it comes to the UFC, but I'll admit that even I was on the side of Ilia Topuria would have won, because naturally when you just look at, you know, what each one has put on display recently and stuff, you kind of just get the vibes. If we couldn't have vibes, then none of us could ever predict fights, you know what I mean? But that aside, the fight happened. Justin Gaethje has actually managed to become champion, which is really funny to me, because honestly, I never actually thought I'd see the day. I thought there was always going to be, you know, one more person better than him. But for respect, became champion. Now, the main premise is to discuss what's next. Now, I'll start off with Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, new champ. First of all, if I was Justin Gaethje, my first thing would be to retire. That's my opinion. Primarily because Justin Gaethje has literally fought like everyone. Granted, he might not have won every single fight, but still he stepped in there and he put up a decent fight against everyone, you know what I mean? Except for Khabib. So with that, he's already got an insanely stacked resume, he's made himself a really big name, and I think primarily is that he won in the White House, he won the belt, he beat Ilia Topuria, a guy who literally no one, like, Justin Gaethje went in as probably the biggest underdog of all time, so no one thought he was going to win. It was literally, it's like the perfect opportunity to just, you know, end it right there. Thing is though with Justin Gaethje is that he's just one of those people that loves to fight. You know what I mean? Like, you have those fighters who become champion and then like to, you know, build more of a legacy. And then you have those fighters who literally just, all they love to do is fight. Yeah, maybe I am a bit of a casual fan. Any hoosers, when you look at it one way, I think it's pretty safe to say that Arman Tsarukyan should 100% be the next in line for the belt. This guy is literally the top contender. He's been the top contender. He's still been fighting, and it just makes a lot more sense. But the thing is that Arman Tsarukyan has a habit of just shooting himself in the foot. I mean, this guy literally starts, you know, drama with a lot of people, and he's not exactly number one on Dana White's list to get a next title shot. Do you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, he's making a name for himself. He's getting involved with streamers. He's doing, is it the RAF with the wrestling and whatnot? So he's getting up there name-wise. At the end of the day, if you're still fighting under the UFC, there's really one person that you need to impress to be able to get those fights. And if you're not impressing that guy, I mean, you're basically a no one at that point. I'm pretty sure in the press conference after the White House, I think someone asked Dana White if, you know, Arman Tsarukyan is the next fight. And he sort of just brushed off the question a little bit. So basically what I'm saying is if Arman Tsarukyan really does want this title shot, which I think he should get and I think he should work for, he needs to stop creating problems all over the place. He needs to be able to just not let his emotions get the better of him and cause drama all over the place. Now that's the number one obvious answer, which would be Arman Tsarukyan as the next champion. Now that would be the number one fight, and I feel like if you're somewhat of a UFC fan, even you'd agree to it that Arman Tsarukyan should be next, and that should be the next lightweight fight. But assuming a fight with Arman Tsarukyan doesn't happen, which is actually a pretty good chance considering this guy's history, then you have to look at who the next contender would be. And in my opinion, I think it should be Michael Chandler. Okay, in all seriousness, I don't actually have anyone in mind besides Arman Tsarukyan, but I will say that Charles Oliveira has been all over social media, just pushing this fight continuously. Obviously, they've already fought one time, so to Charles Oliveira, I mean, this is a pretty clear shot way to getting the belt again, you know? He won the BMF belt against Max Holloway. He's doing pretty well. He wants to come back. He wants that lightweight belt. We all know how much Charles Oliveira loves that lightweight belt, so he wants to do whatever he can to get it. And, I mean, Justin Gaethje is that pathway for him, you know? Although he's been promoting it on social media, I don't really know if that's actually going to warrant him getting a title shot. I wouldn't put it past the UFC to make that fight happen, and I also wouldn't put it past Justin Gaethje saying that he wouldn't want that fight. I think he definitely also wants to fight Charles Oliveira again. I mean, it's a rematch. You would want to get back at the guy that beat you, essentially. I'd also argue that Ilia Topuria isn't up there for getting the next title shot or an immediate rematch, primarily because yes, he did get beat quite a lot. I think he needs to definitely take some time off and just let himself relax and do what he needs to do. But I'll talk about that a bit later. Considering Gaethje was able to, you know, weather the storm for however many rounds it went. I think it was like, was it 4? And the fact that he was also able to just insanely bruise and cut his face. I think that for Ilia Topuria, he will need to go and fight someone else before he can look at another title shot. I don't think an immediate one is right there. So on the basis of that, I mean, Justin Gaethje really only has two sort of options when it comes to, you know, what's next for the title shot, which would be Arman Tsarukyan or Charles Oliveira. Which one of those he gets, I actually have no idea. But I think it will be interesting to see who it is. But I'd lean a little bit more towards Charles Oliveira on the primary basis that I think Charles is, you know, he is pushing for that fight a lot. And if they do manage to fight, well, my prediction is... Alright, that sums up Justin Gaethje, what's next for him in terms of, you know, him being a champion and him fighting someone else. But what I really want to move on to is Ilia Topuria. He's definitely a good person. I can see the way that he respects people. He's able to take his loss and everything. I think that one thing that he lets himself do too much is get too, you know, cocky and lets his ego get the best of him, which you can mask as overconfidence, but I think at a certain point it literally just does become literally no one on this earth will be able to beat me. And look, I mean, evidently that wasn't true. He did all the promotions. He talked in interviews. He said, I'm going to knock him out. He said, Justin Gaethje is getting knocked out. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be this. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to ask Islam Makhachev, you know, what's his favorite submission, and I'm going to submit him with that. So there was a lot of there's a lot of him saying that he has a lot of confidence. Basically what I'm saying is I think it's a pretty big lesson to not only him but to everyone to just not let yourself get that cocky and not let yourself get that big of an ego, because once you do, I mean, now you sort of have to wither the repercussions of it. Look, that aside, whether he'll keep that, you know, personality and thought process, that's totally up to him, whatever he's going to do. I don't think he will. I think he'll slow it down. I think it's good if he keeps his confidence, but I think he'll also just slow it down. He won't continuously say, hey, I'm going to beat this guy 100%. From everything I've seen on social media so far from Ilia Topuria, he hasn't officially said anything. Granted, I don't think he can because his face is sort of mashed. But what's been coming from his team, it sounds like he's, you know, taking the loss well. I don't think he would, you know, let it get to him too much. I don't know, man. Me and Ilia Topuria, we're not boys. But what is next for Ilia Topuria? And first of all, I've seen so much on social media that people are saying that his career is over. He's never going to bounce back from this and stuff. You guys have to realize that Ilia Topuria is young. He will be able to bounce back from this. The main thing is people are comparing it to when Justin Gaethje fought Tony Ferguson. And Tony Ferguson, in my opinion at that time, Tony Ferguson only wanted the Khabib fight. I think once he fought Khabib, I think that would have been the be-all and end-all for Tony Ferguson. I don't think he would have won against Khabib, but I will say though, I'm very glad that he's doing more stuff, and I'm glad that he's going into boxing as well, which I think is quite cool. So I'm happy for him on that one. I mean, we all know Tony Ferguson, this is part of his plan. You know, he just wants to go on a massive 17 losing streak to then pull off one of the greatest comebacks in combat sports history. Anyway, my point being is that you can't compare Tony Ferguson to Ilia Topuria because different ages, different parts of their career. I mean, Ilia Topuria is, he's in his prime still. He's going to come back. Now, because I don't think he should get an immediate rematch, and I feel like that's a pretty popular opinion amongst the whole MMA community, I think he needs to fight once, and then he can maybe get a title shot, maybe twice, depending on who the champion is. I'm not too sure, but in my opinion, one more fight against a somewhat top contender, I think he should be back in the conversation. Also, to add to the conversation of people saying that he won't come back, I think people need to realize that MMA math will literally never be correct, okay? When you look at Justin Gaethje and Topuria, for example, let's look at the facts. Holloway beat Charles. Charles then beat Holloway. Ilia Topuria knocked out Holloway. Ilia Topuria knocked out Charles Oliveira. Max Holloway knocked out Gaethje. Charles Oliveira knocked out Gaethje, or submitted him actually. Knocked him down but then submitted him. Ilia Topuria knocked out Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira. And then Justin Gaethje manages to finish off Ilia Topuria. Basically what I'm saying is that it's never going to be correct. You can beat one guy and they could beat another dude and you could lose to that same guy, whatever it is. Every fight is different. Assuming that Arman Tsarukyan gets the title shot against Justin Gaethje, so that just leaves Ilia Topuria there, right? Now, I don't think a lot of people would want to see a rematch between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria just because of what happened in the first fight. Granted, it was only because Charles Oliveira made the mistakes that he made. I do think he could actually put a way more competitive fight. Although he didn't do that great on the ground when he did fight Topuria, I think if he can implement parts of what he did against Holloway against Topuria, it could work out better. Also, he should not continuously just step forward and just get caught. Now, assuming that Charles Oliveira somehow manages to get the title shot against Justin Gaethje and Arman Tsarukyan doesn't, then I think it's pretty clear as day, Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan. There is so much talk between them. I think it just needs to happen. The outcome of that fight, I mean, it can really go either way. I never count out anyone. I never look at one fight and say, no, he's definitely going to win on the basis of this fight. No, anything can happen in a fight. Arman Tsarukyan can beat him. Ilia Topuria can beat him. It's just, that's how it is. I would lean a little bit more to Arman Tsarukyan just because of the ground game. I know Topuria definitely does have good ground game, but I think, especially with everything that Arman Tsarukyan's doing in, RAF, he's definitely, making more of a effort to show off his wrestling skills, which I think is quite good. So I'd lean a little bit more to him. But like I said, anything can happen. But you see, the thing is that so many times they've tried to get fights like these, done, like Arman Tsarukyan and Ilia Topuria. I have no idea who's ducking who. I've seen a lot of people say Ilia Topuria was ducking Tsarukyan, but then again, Tsarukyan shoots himself in the foot consistently and just loses out on title shots. It's no guarantee that those fights are actually going to happen. So when I look at it from a viewer perspective, the fight that I actually want to see next for Ilia Topuria, which I think is actually a pretty good comeback fight for him, would be Paddy Pimblett. Right after the Gaethje fight, Paddy Pimblett, I saw a clip of him where he was essentially, going off at Topuria for quitting on the stool, which basically, Paddy Pimblett, he got sort of the same treatment and he didn't quit, but Ilia Topuria did quit. Basically what I'm saying is there's a lot of talk between them, and we've seen it in the past as well where they have beef with each other, they don't like each other, they want to fight each other. And originally, Ilia Topuria thought Paddy Pimblett was going to be Justin Gaethje, and it would have actually been Paddy Pimblett in there, not Justin Gaethje. I think because of how much they've talked about each other, considering that Ilia Topuria is the ex-champ and Paddy Pimblett just fought for the interim belt, they're pretty high up in the division. So I feel like them two fighting can put themselves in a good position to maybe look at another title shot. Paddy Pimblett, if he beats Ilia Topuria, he's just beaten the ex-champ. And then he'll go and he'll say, okay, I want to fight with, let's assume Justin Gaethje is still the champion. I get a title shot, and I can't exactly argue against that. Granted, I want everyone to fight 2 or 3 times before they get a title shot, but we just don't live in that era anymore where you actually have to work for a title shot. You can literally just win and say, hey, I'm not doing anything until I get a title shot. And then with Ilia Topuria, if he manages to beat Paddy Pimblett is, pretty high ranked in the lightweights now. So, that's a pretty good contender for him to beat and be able to get another title shot. I also have a slight feeling that Ilya Topuria won't want to fight Arman Tsarukyan unless it's for a belt. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these people don't like to fight someone unless it's for a belt nowadays, which is pretty foolish to me. Just fight. That's literally like, that's your job, your career, do it. Assuming that Ilya Topuria and Paddy Pimblett do happen, I do lean a little bit more towards Ilya Topuria winning, primarily because the ground game from both of them is relatively strong. I know Paddy can definitely wrestle. Ilya Topuria can wrestle. Okay, he was doing quite well on the ground in, I believe, the second round against Justin Gaethje. So when it comes to the ground, I typically see it as a more, 50-50. I don't think there's going to be too much ground action, which then just leaves them in the stand-up. And Ilya Topuria definitely has more of an advantage with the stand-up. He has the more cleaner boxing, more power punches. I'm not even joking you. I couldn't analyze fighters for all I care, you know what I mean? And with Paddy Pimblett, striking wise against Gaethje, he didn't look... Granted, Ilya Topuria didn't look the greatest as well, but look, just comparatively, when you put them together, you normally look at it as, hey, ground game is 50-50, maybe Paddy Pimblett just slightly better, but not too much to the point where it's an absolute game changer. But stand-up wise, I still do have Ilya Topuria, a lot more higher up on the scale there. I actually didn't think I was going to blab on for this long. This is literally what goes through my mind when I watch these combat sports events, is just how much I want to get off my chest, which is actually quite nice. Pretty much that's where I stand on what I think is next for Gaethje and Topuria after the White House card. I think for Gaethje, he has Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan. I think for Topuria, he has Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan, Paddy Pimblett. I think it should be Arman Tsarukyan fighting Gaethje, and I think it should be Paddy Pimblett fighting Topuria. That's where my final stance on that. If on the off chance that you do actually end up watching this video, I want to know what you would sort of go as well. Who do you think should be next for Gaethje and Topuria, and why? Alright, that's basically literally all I wanted to get off my mind. So, see you later.